The man with the gold teeth slammed Tamara Williams against the van door so hard her vision went white. "Scream again," he said, "and your daughter dies tonight." He shoved her inside, zip-tied her wrists, and laughed when she begged. Behind him, his brother lit a cigarette and watched the 7-year-old standing frozen in the doorway. "3 days," he called out to the child. "Tell anyone and Mama comes home in pieces." The van disappeared into the Chicago night. 3 days later, that same little girl walked up to the most dangerous man on the South Side and held out everything she owned, a crumpled $5 bill. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and watch this story until the very end. Comment below which city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. Marcus King Washington stepped out of his black Escalade at exactly 8:47 p.m. The cold hit him first, then the familiar smell of his territory. Exhaust fried food and the faint sweetness of garbage from the alley behind La Familia restaurant. Terrence moved to his left. Bone moved to his right. Neither man spoke. They didn't need to. 20 years of working together had turned them into extensions of Marcus's own body. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Dinner with the alderman's nephew. A conversation about zoning permits for the new development on 47th Street. The kind of boring, necessary business that kept Marcus's legitimate operations running smooth, while his other operations stayed invisible. He was reaching for the restaurant door when something touched his hand. Marcus reacted on instinct, spinning his hand, going for the weapon at his hip. Then he stopped. A little girl stood in front of him. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her braids were coming undone, colorful beads clicking together as she trembled in the wind. Her winter coat hung past her wrists, the sleeves frayed, the zipper broken. Her sneakers had holes near the toes, and Marcus could see mismatched socks underneath. She held up a crumpled $5 bill with both hands. "Please, mister." Her voice shook. "This is all I have." Terrence's hand was already inside his jacket. Bone had stepped forward, ready to sweep this child aside like she was nothing. Marcus raised one finger. Both men froze. In 20 years of running the South Side, Marcus had seen everything. He'd seen grown men cry. He'd seen women offer things no woman should have to offer. He'd seen politicians grovel and gangsters beg and priests lie straight to his face. But he'd never seen a little black girl walk up to him on the street and try to hand him $5. Marcus crouched down slowly. His knees cracked, protesting the cold and the years. He brought himself eye level with her and studied her face. Tear tracks. Dried. She'd been crying, but not recently. The tears were old. Maybe hours old. Maybe days. A bruise on her left knuckles, fresh, purple and swollen. She'd hit something. Or someone. And her eyes. God, her eyes. They held something Marcus hadn't seen in decades. Something he'd forgotten existed. Hope. "What's your name, little one?" "Destiny." The word came out like a prayer. Destiny Williams. Destiny Williams. Marcus let the name settle. "That's a beautiful name. How old are you?" 7. She swallowed hard. "Almost 8. My birthday's in 3 weeks. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Mama always says I'm her little Valentine." Something shifted in Marcus's chest. A door he'd welded shut years ago rattled on its hinges. "Where's your mama now, Destiny?" The little girl's face crumpled. For one terrible second, Marcus thought she would collapse right there on the sidewalk. But she didn't. She caught herself, pulled herself together with a strength that had no business living inside a 7-year-old body. "The bad men took her," Destiny said. 3 nights ago." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. "What bad men?" "They came to our apartment. They knocked on the door so hard I thought they were going to break it. Mama looked through the peephole and her face went white. She told me to hide in the closet. She told me not to come out no matter what I heard." Destiny's voice got smaller. "But I could hear everything. The walls are thin. They're always thin." "What did you hear?" "They said my daddy owed them money. $25,000. But my daddy's dead, mister. He died last year. He fell off a building. How can a dead person owe money? Marcus didn't answer. He knew exactly how. They said Mama had to pay. She showed them our bank account. $37. That's all we had. That's all we ever have. Destiny's chin trembled. They laughed at her. They said she could pay another way. Work it off, they said. When Mama said no, they grabbed her. She screamed at me to stay hidden. She screamed at me to be brave. Then I heard the van door slam, and she was gone. Did you see their faces? Destiny nodded. I looked through the crack in the closet door. One of them had a spider tattoo. Right here. She touched her neck behind her ear. Like a web going down. The other one had gold teeth, shiny ones, and a scar across his eye. Victor and Nikolai Kozlov. Marcus kept his face perfectly still, but inside something dark and cold was waking up. Something he'd kept chained for a long time. There's more, Destiny said. The one with gold teeth, he saw me. He looked right at the closet. He knew I was there. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He said if I told anyone, Mama would come home in pieces. He said they'd start with her fingers, then her ears, then... She couldn't finish. Marcus reached out and gently took the $5 bill from her shaking hands. Destiny, look at me. She looked. Did you tell anyone, the police? Your teachers? I tried. Her face twisted with anger that was too big for her small body. I called 911. They sent an officer. He wrote things down in a little notebook. He kept yawning. He kept checking his phone. He said they'd look into it. She spat the words like they tasted rotten. That was 3 days ago. Nobody came back. Nobody called. Nobody looked into anything. So you came to me. Mrs. Robinson told me about you. She runs the corner store. She said you're the only one the bad men are scared of. She said when those other men tried to make her pay extra, you made them go away. She said you protect people. Destiny stepped closer. She also said you're probably going to hell. But I don't care about that. I just need you to save my mama first. Behind Marcus, Bone made a sound that might have been a laugh. It died when Marcus looked at him. Mrs. Robinson talks too much, Marcus said. She said you'd say that. Despite everything, Marcus almost smiled. Smart woman. She said you have rules. She said you never hurt families. She said even criminals have codes. Destiny's eyes locked onto his. Is that true? Do you have a code? Marcus thought about the question. He thought about the things he'd done, the people he'd hurt, the families he'd destroyed when they got between him and his business. I used to, he said. What happened? I forgot. Destiny processed this. Maybe you could remember, just for tonight, just for my mama. Marcus looked at this child, this tiny warrior in her broken coat and holy shoes, and felt something crack inside his chest. Not break. Crack. Like ice on a river when spring finally comes. Destiny. Do you know what you're asking me to do? Yes. I'm not a police officer. I'm not a social worker. I'm not someone who helps people out of the goodness of his heart. The things I do. He paused. There will be violence. People will get hurt, probably killed. I know. You know. I'm 7, not stupid. Her voice hardened. I've seen violence. I've seen people get hurt. I live on the South Side. I know what the world is. I know what men like you do. She took a breath. But I also know my mama's been gone for 3 days. I know those men are going to sell her, or hurt her, or kill her. And I know nobody else is going to do anything about it. She pointed at the $5 bill in his hand. That's my lunch money. All of it. I've been eating crackers from Mrs. Robinson's store because I gave everything else to you. So either you help me, or that money's wasted, and my mama dies anyway, and I end up in a foster home where nobody cares if I live or die. Marcus stared at her. In 47 years of life, no one had ever spoken to him like that. Not his lieutenants, not his rivals, not the politicians he owned or the cops he paid off. A 7-year-old girl had just laid out the situation with more clarity and more courage than anyone he'd ever met. Terrence, Marcus said without looking back. Call Darnell. Everyone. Full count. Now. Boss? Terrence stepped forward. We got the thing with the alderman's nephew in 20 minutes. Cancel it. Cancel it. That deal's worth. Did I stutter? Terrence shut his mouth. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. Marcus stood up slowly, his knees protesting. He looked down at Destiny, still watching him with those fierce, desperate eyes. You said you've been alone for 3 days. Yes. Where have you been sleeping? Our apartment. I know how to lock the door. I know how to be quiet. What have you been eating? Peanut butter. We had some bread left. When that ran out, I ate it with a spoon. She shrugged like it was nothing. I've been hungry before. It's not that bad once you get used to it. Something twisted in Marcus's gut. This child had been surviving alone for 3 days, rationing peanut butter, hiding from the monsters who took her mother, and she was telling him it wasn't that bad. Destiny, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Go to Mrs. Robinson's store. Tell her King sent you. Tell her you're staying there until I come back. Don't leave for any reason. Don't talk to anyone you don't know. Can you do that? She nodded so hard, her beads clicked together. You're really going to help me. You're really going to save my mama. Marcus crouched down one more time. He put his hand on her shoulder, feeling how thin she was under that oversized coat. Destiny, I'm going to make you a promise, and I need you to understand something about me. I don't make promises often, almost never. Because when I make a promise, I keep it, no matter what it costs, no matter who tries to stop me. Okay. Your mother is coming home tonight. I give you my word. The tears finally came. Destiny had been holding them back for 3 days, staying strong, staying brave, doing what her mama told her to do. But now, finally, someone was going to help. She threw her arms around Marcus's neck and sobbed into his shoulder. Marcus froze. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had hugged him. His mother, probably. 15 years ago, before the cancer took her. Slowly, awkwardly, he put his arms around this little girl and let her cry. Thank you, she gasped between sobs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't thank me yet, Marcus said. Thank me when you're eating breakfast with your mama tomorrow. Destiny pulled back, wiping her face with her sleeve. What if the bad men come looking for me before you get her? Marcus stood up. Something in his face changed. Something dark. Something old. Something that made even Terrence and Bone take a step back. Then they'll have to go through me, he said. And little one, nobody goes through me. Destiny ran toward Mrs. Robinson's store. Marcus watched until she disappeared through the door, until he saw the old woman's face appear in the window. Surprised, then understanding, then nodding once at him, before pulling the child inside. Boss? Bone's voice was careful. You want to tell me what's happening right now, because I've been with you 11 years, and I've never seen you take a contract from a 7-year-old for $5. Marcus turned to face his men. The Kozlov brothers. You know who they are? Russians, Terrence said. Been pushing in from the west side for about 8 months. Drugs, mostly. Some girls. Some girls, Marcus repeated. You know where those girls come from. Terrence hesitated. I heard rumors. South Side, Englewood, Austin. Black women, Marcus said. Poor women. Women nobody looks for when they go missing. Women whose children call 911 and get cops who yawn and check their phones. Bone shifted uncomfortably. Boss starting a war with the Russians over what? Marcus stepped toward him, and Bone, who was 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier, actually stepped back. Over a mother. Over a child who's been eating peanut butter alone for 3 days while her mama's locked in a freezer somewhere. Over the fact that these animals have been hunting our people in our territory, and I did nothing because it wasn't my business. He let the silence stretch. It's my business now. The back room of La Familia was already full by the time Marcus arrived. Word traveled fast. When King called a full count, you showed up. No excuses. No delays. 43 men stood or sat around the long table. Some were young, barely 20, hungry, and eager to prove themselves. Others were old, scarred veterans of wars that never made the news. All of them were loyal. All of them were dangerous. Darnell Thompson stood at Marcus's right hand as he had for 18 years. 6'5", 300 pounds, with hands that had ended more lives than anyone in this room could count. He'd started as a 14-year-old runner on these same streets, and now he was the second most powerful man on the South Side. "Everyone's here," Darnell said. "What are we looking at?" Marcus walked to the head of the table. The room went silent. "The Kozlov brothers," he said. "Victor and Nikolai, Russians. Been operating on the West Side for 8 months. Drugs, guns, the usual, but that's not why we're here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled $5 bill. He set it on the table where everyone could see. 3 days ago, they took a woman named Tamara Williams, 34 years old, widow, works 2 jobs, both cleaning, trying to keep her daughter fed. They took her from her home in front of her 7-year-old child. They told that child if she talked, they'd send her mother back in pieces. The temperature in the room dropped. These were hard men, criminals, some of them killers, but every one of them had grown up with mothers who looked like Tamara Williams. Grandmothers who worked cleaning jobs. Sisters who walked these same dangerous streets. "Tonight," Marcus continued, "that 7-year-old found me. She walked up to me on the sidewalk and offered me this $5 bill to save her mother, her lunch money, everything she had." He looked around the table, meeting every eye. "She's been alone for 3 days, surviving on peanut butter and crackers, waiting for anyone to help her. She tried the police. They took a report and forgot she existed. She tried praying. God didn't answer. So she came to me." Marcus picked up the $5 bill. "This is the bravest thing I've ever seen." A 7-year-old girl walked up to the most dangerous man in Chicago and hired him to save her mother. She wasn't stupid. She wasn't naive. She knew exactly what she was asking, and she did it anyway. He put the money back in his pocket. "I made her a promise. I told her that her mother would be home tonight. I intend to keep that promise. The question is, who's with me?" Every hand went up. Darnell spread a hand-drawn map across the table. "Intel says the Kozlovs are operating out of the old Armor meatpacking plant on Ashland. Been there about 8 months. Main building, cold storage offices. They've got power running from a generator." "Security?" Marcus asked. 15 to 20 soldiers, armed but lazy. They're not expecting trouble." Darnell pointed to the map. 2 exits. Main gate on Ashland, service entrance on the back leading to the loading docks. We can lock it down with 2 teams. "Cameras. 2 at the front gate. Nothing else. These guys are operating cheap." Marcus nodded. "What about the brothers themselves?" "Victor and Nikolai haven't left the building in 3 days, running everything from inside, probably paranoid after what happened to the Mendez crew." A young soldier named Curtis spoke up. "King, we hit them hard, we get the woman out. But then what? Victor's connected to Brighton Beach. His people in New York aren't going to let this go. Then they can come to Chicago and discuss it with me personally." Marcus's voice was ice. "Anyone else got concerns they want to share?" Silence. "Good." Marcus checked his weapon, the same .45 he'd carried for 15 years. "Darnell, you take 20 men, north and south entrances. Lock it down tight. Nothing moves in or out without my say-so. And you?" "I'm going through the front door with the rest." "King." Darnell lowered his voice. "We don't know what's in there, how many women they're holding, what kind of security they've got inside. Let me take point." "No." Marcus met his oldest friend's eyes. "I made a promise to a 7-year-old girl. I'm going to keep it myself." The convoy moved through Chicago like ghosts. 4 black SUVs, no plates, taking back streets and alleys Marcus had memorized over 20 years of staying ahead of cops who wanted him dead and rivals who wanted him buried. The meatpacking plant rose out of the darkness like a tomb, abandoned, rotting. The kind of place where screams disappeared into concrete and nobody asked questions. Perfect for what the Kozlovs were doing. Marcus's team split at the perimeter. Darnell took his men around the sides, moving silent, cutting off escape routes. Marcus led the rest straight toward the main entrance. The first guard never saw them coming. One moment he was smoking a cigarette by the gate. The next moment he was on the ground unconscious, zip-tied silent. The second guard lasted 3 seconds longer. Inside the main building, the smell hit Marcus like a fist. Blood. Old meat. Something else underneath. Something human. Terror. They moved through the darkness, clearing room after room, processing floors where rusted machines loomed like prehistoric beasts. Offices stripped of everything but dust and rat droppings. Hallways that led nowhere. Then they found the cold storage. The door was reinforced steel, padlocked from the outside. That was good. It meant something inside was worth keeping locked. Marcus nodded at Curtis. "Open it." The lock gave way with a crack that echoed through the empty building. The door swung open, releasing a wave of cold air that burned Marcus's lungs. He stepped inside and stopped. The room had been converted into a prison. Industrial freezers lined the walls, their doors removed, bars welded across the openings. Inside each makeshift cell, women huddled together for warmth. Marcus counted them. 12. 12 human beings caged like animals. Black women, brown women. Some barely out of their teens. Others old enough to be grandmothers. All of them thin. All of them terrified. All of them looking at Marcus like they didn't know if he was salvation or just another monster. And in the cell closest to the door, a woman looked up with hollow eyes. She was thin, shivering. Her face was bruised, her lips split. But she was alive. Marcus recognized her immediately. Tamara Williams. "Please." Her voice was a ragged whisper. "Please don't hurt us anymore. Please." Marcus lowered his weapon. He pulled down the mask, covering his face. "Mrs. Williams," he said quietly, "your daughter sent me." The sound that came out of Tamara wasn't human. It was something deeper, something more primal. 3 days of terror and pain and despair cracking open all at once. Destiny. My baby. Is she okay? Did they hurt her? Please, God. Please tell me she's okay. She's safe. She's waiting for you at Mrs. Robinson's store. She's been there all night praying you'd come home. Tamara collapsed against the bars, sobbing. The other women watched, not understanding, not daring to hope. "Get them out," Marcus ordered. "All of them. Now." His men moved fast. Bolt cutters appeared. Locks fell away. Women stumbled out of their cages, crying, shaking, clutching each other like survivors of a shipwreck. Marcus helped Tamara to her feet. She weighed nothing. Bones and terror and not much else. 3 days, she whispered. They kept us here for 3 days. No food, almost no water. They said they were going to ship us somewhere, overseas, make us disappear forever. Not anymore, Marcus said. That's over now. Why did you? Your daughter. Marcus helped her toward the exit. She walked up to me with $5 and asked me to save you. Bravest thing I've ever seen. Tamara started crying again. My baby. My brave, stupid, beautiful baby. They were almost to the door when Darnell's voice crackled through Marcus's earpiece. King, we've got the brothers. Office building, 3rd floor. They tried to run, but Curtis cut them off. Status. Contained. Waiting on you. Marcus handed Tamara off to one of his men. Get her to Mrs. Robinson's store. Don't stop for anything. Don't talk to anyone. What about you? Tamara grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Where are you going? To finish this. The office was on the 3rd floor of the adjacent building. Marcus climbed the stairs alone, his footsteps echoing in the darkness. Behind him, his men were evacuating the women, loading them into vehicles, getting them to safety. But this part, he needed to do himself. Victor and Nikolai Kozlov were on their knees when Marcus entered, hands zip-tied behind their backs, blood on their faces from the brief fight they'd lost. Victor, the older brother, looked defiant. Nikolai, younger and softer, looked like he was about to wet himself. Marcus Washington. Victor's Russian accent was thick with contempt. You're making big mistake, very big mistake. Marcus pulled up a chair and sat down directly in front of them. He crossed his legs, folded his hands. Tell me about Tamara Williams. Who? Marcus moved fast. His hand closed around Victor's throat, squeezing just enough to turn defiance into fear. The woman you took 3 days ago, black, 34. Works 2 cleaning jobs to support her daughter. That Tamara Williams. Victor's eyes bulged. Marcus released him. She owed us money. Victor gasped. Her husband, before he died. Gambling debts. How much? 25,000. And when she couldn't pay? Victor glanced at his brother. We gave her options. Options. Marcus repeated the word like it tasted of poison. What kind of options? Work options. Very lucrative work options. Overseas clients pay good money for. Marcus hit him. Not hard enough to break anything, just hard enough to remind Victor who was in charge. Let me tell you what's going to happen now, Marcus said. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to answer them. If I think you're lying, my friend Darnell is going to remove one of your fingers. After 10 lies, we move on to other body parts. Understood? Victor spat blood on the floor. You don't know who you're dealing with. Our people in New York. Your people in New York are 3 hours away by plane. Right now, it's just you and me. And I've got all night. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed them a picture. Destiny Williams taken from the corner store's security camera. Her braids, her beads, her too big coat. This little girl, Marcus said, 7 years old. You took her mother in front of her. You told her if she talked you'd send Mama home in pieces. You left her alone for 3 days with nothing to eat but peanut butter. Victor shrugged. Children are resilient. Marcus hit him again. Harder this time. Victor's nose crunched. Here's what you don't understand. Marcus stood up, looming over them. That little girl walked up to me tonight. She gave me $5, everything she had, and she asked me to save her mother. He held up the crumpled bill. This $5. You see it. This is the reason you're going to die tonight. Nikolai started crying. Please, we have money. We can pay you, whatever you want. I don't want your money. Marcus tucked the $5 back in his pocket. There's nothing you can give me that's worth more than what that child gave me tonight. What did she give you? Victor sneered through broken teeth. $5. Courage. Marcus drew his weapon. Something you wouldn't understand. Victor's sneer faded. Wait, we can work this out. We can... You took 12 women from my neighborhood. 12 mothers, 12 daughters, 12 sisters. You put them in cages like animals. You were going to sell them overseas, make them disappear, and you thought nobody would care because they were black and poor and forgotten. Marcus raised the weapon. You were wrong. What happened next took less than 60 seconds. When it was over, the Kozlov brothers' trafficking operation was permanently closed. Marcus stood in the silence, looking down at what remained. His hands were steady. His breathing was calm. In 20 years of running these streets, he'd learned to detach from violence. It was necessary. It was business. It was the cost of power. But this hadn't felt like business. This had felt like justice. His phone buzzed. Darnell. King. The women are secure. We've got them at the safe house. Medical is on the way. Tamara Williams. On her way to Mrs. Robinson's store. Should be there in 10 minutes. Good. There's something else. What? We found records, documents, shipment manifests. The Kozlovs have been doing this for years, King. Not just here, across the whole Midwest. Hundreds of women. Marcus closed his eyes. Hundreds of women. Hundreds of Tamaras. Hundreds of destinies left alone with nothing but peanut butter and fear. Send everything to my lawyer, he said. Anonymous tip to the FBI. Make sure it can't trace back to us. And the bodies. Marcus looked around the room one final time. Make them disappear. I want nothing left. No evidence. No traces. Just ghosts. Understood. Marcus walked out of the building and into the cold Chicago night. The sky was starting to lighten in the east. Dawn was coming. A new day. He drove to Mrs. Robinson's store himself. No convoy. No bodyguards. Just him and the empty streets and the $5 bill in his pocket. The lights were on inside. Through the window he could see them. Tamara Williams wrapped in a blanket sitting on the old couch in the back room. And in her arms, Destiny. Finally asleep. Finally safe. Marcus watched them for a long moment. Mother and daughter reunited. A family put back together by violence and blood, and a promise made on a cold street corner. He should feel good about this. He should feel proud. Instead, he felt tired, bone-deep tired, the kind of tired that came from carrying too much for too long. He pushed open the door. Mrs. Robinson looked up from behind the counter, her old eyes knowing. "It's done," she asked. "It's done. The brothers won't be bothering anyone ever again." Mrs. Robinson nodded slowly. "That little girl waited up for hours. Wouldn't sleep. Kept saying she knew you'd save her mama. Kept saying you gave your word." "I did. I've known you 20 years, Marcus Washington. Watched you grow from an angry young man into whatever you are now. I've seen you do terrible things, things that keep me up at night. I know. But what you did tonight..." Mrs. Robinson's voice cracked. "That was something else. That was the boy I remember, before the streets got hold of him." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. He walked past her through the storeroom to the back room where Tamara and Destiny slept. Tamara looked up when he entered. Her face was still bruised, still swollen, but something had changed in her eyes. The terror was gone, replaced by something softer. "She finally fell asleep," Tamara whispered. "About an hour ago. She was fighting it. Kept saying she wanted to be awake when you got here." Marcus walked over and looked down at Destiny. She looked so small, so fragile. Her braids were a mess, beads scattered across the pillow. Her too big coat was draped over a chair. In her small hand, she clutched something. The $5 bill. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. Not crack this time. Break. All the walls he'd built. All the armor he'd worn. All the coldness he'd wrapped around his heart to survive in this world. Gone. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the original $5. The one Destiny had given him on the street. He'd been carrying it all night through the violence and the blood and the death. It was crumpled and worn and probably worthless to anyone else. But to him, it was everything. He set it gently on the table beside the couch. "2 $5 bills, Tamara said. "One for her, one for the next person who needs a miracle." "Something like that." Tamara studied his face. "Who are you really? Why did you help us?" Marcus thought about the question. Thought about all the answers he could give. The truth was complicated. The truth involved his mother Lorraine, who'd worked herself to death to keep him alive. It involved a version of himself he'd buried years ago. It involved a little girl with beads in her hair who'd reminded him that some things were worth fighting for. "I'm nobody special," he said finally. "Just someone who keeps his word." "That's not true." Tamara shook her head. "Destiny told me what you said, about promises, about keeping them no matter what." She paused. "My husband was like that, Jerome. When he said something, he meant it. When he made a promise, he kept it." "Sounds like a good man." "He was." Tears slid down her face. "He would have liked you, I think. Would have understood you." Marcus didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to being understood. "I should go," he said. "You need rest. Both of you." He turned toward the door. "Mr. Washington." He stopped. "When Destiny wakes up, what do I tell her about you? About what happened?" Marcus thought about that. Thought about the 12 women in the safe house. The Kozlov brothers gone forever. The evidence heading to the FBI. The ripples spreading outward from this one night. Tell her the truth, he said. Tell her the world is dark and scary. Tell her sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you don't. Tell her sometimes you have to find your own angels, even if they don't look like what you expected. He opened the door. And tell her that $5 can change everything, if you're brave enough to spend it. He walked out into the dawn. Behind him, Destiny Williams shifted in her sleep, clutching both $5 bills, now dreaming of the day she'd grow up to help others the way someone had helped her. And in his pocket, Marcus Washington carried nothing but the memory of a little girl's courage. Some debts could never be repaid. Some didn't need to be. His phone buzzed as he reached his car. A text from an unknown number. The Kozlovs had friends. They're already asking questions. This isn't over. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he deleted it. He knew it wasn't over. In his world, nothing was ever over. Violence bred violence. Blood called for blood. The Russians in New York would send someone. Then he'd have to send someone back. The cycle would continue as it always did. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight a mother was home with her daughter. 12 women were safe, and a 7-year-old girl had taught him something he'd forgotten, that some things were worth fighting for, even if the fight never ended. Marcus Washington got in his car and drove away. The war was coming. But for now the sun was rising over Chicago, and somewhere in a little corner store, a brave little girl slept peacefully for the first time in 3 days. That was enough. For now, that was enough. The sun had barely risen over Chicago when Marcus's phone rang again. He was sitting in his car outside Mrs. Robinson's store, watching the windows, making sure Tamara and Destiny were still safe inside. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. The adrenaline from the night's work was fading, leaving behind something heavier. The phone showed a blocked number. Marcus answered. "Who is this?" "Mr. Washington." The voice was calm, polished with just a hint of Russian accent. "My name is Alexei Volkov. I believe you met my cousins last night, Victor and Nikolai." Marcus said nothing. "I'm calling from New York," Volkov continued. "Brighton Beach, to be specific. I woke up this morning to some very disturbing news. It seems my cousins have disappeared, along with their entire operation. Sounds like a personal problem." "It is. And now it's yours." Volkov's voice hardened. "The Kozlov brothers were under my protection. Their business was my business. Do you understand what that means? It means you're about to lose a lot of money. It means I'm coming to Chicago, Mr. Washington. Me and 50 of my best men. We'll be there by tonight." Volkov paused. "You killed my family. Now I'm going to kill yours. Starting with that little girl who caused all this trouble." Marcus's blood went cold. "Touch that child," he said quietly, "and I will burn Brighton Beach to the ground. Every building, every business, every person who ever shook your hand. You'll have nothing left but ashes and regret." Volkov laughed. "Big words from a man who just started a war he can't win. Enjoy your last day, Mr. Washington. Tomorrow Chicago belongs to me." The line went dead. Marcus sat in the silence staring at his phone. 50 men. Coming tonight. And they knew about Destiny. He dialed Darnell. "King." Darnell's voice was rough with exhaustion. "Everything okay?" "No, we've got a problem. Volkov from Brighton Beach just called. He's bringing 50 soldiers to Chicago tonight. They're coming for me. And they're coming for the girl." Darnell was quiet for a moment. "How do you want to handle this?" "War Council. 1 hour. Everyone." "King, the men are tired. We just..." "1 hour." "Darnell, this isn't a request." Marcus hung up and got out of his car. He walked into Mrs. Robinson's store, the bell above the door chiming softly. The old woman looked up from behind the counter. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she was still there. still watching over her charges. "They're in the back," she said. "The little one woke up about 20 minutes ago. Hasn't let go of her mama since. I need to talk to them." Mrs. Robinson studied his face. 20 years she'd known him. She could read him like a book. "Something's wrong," she said. "Something worse than last night. The Russians are coming. Tonight. 50 of them." Mrs. Robinson's face went pale. "Lord have mercy. I need to move them somewhere safe. Somewhere nobody knows about. I have a sister in Milwaukee. She doesn't ask questions." "Good. Can you take them?" "I can. But Marcus?" Mrs. Robinson reached across the counter and grabbed his hand. "That little girl in there, she thinks you're a hero. She's been telling her mama all morning about how you saved them, about how you kept your promise." "I'm not a hero, Mrs. Robinson. You know that." "Maybe not. But you could be, for her." The old woman squeezed his hand. "Don't let them take that away from her. Don't let them turn her hero into just another body on the news." Marcus didn't know what to say, so he just nodded and walked toward the back room. Tamara and Destiny were sitting on the old couch, wrapped in blankets, holding each other like they were afraid to let go. When Marcus entered, Destiny's face lit up. "Mr. King!" She jumped off the couch and ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "Mama said you saved all those other women too, 12 of them. You're like a superhero." Marcus looked down at this child, this brave little girl who had no idea what was coming, who had no idea that her act of courage had started a war that might get them all killed. "Destiny, I need to talk to your mama for a minute. Grown-up stuff. Can you go help Mrs. Robinson in the store?" Destiny's smile faded. She was smart enough to know when adults were hiding something. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing I can't handle. Go on now." She looked at her mother, who nodded. Then she walked out, glancing back over her shoulder with worried eyes. When she was gone, Tamara stood up slowly. The bruises on her face had darkened overnight. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. "What is it?" she asked. "What's happening?" "The men who took you, they had family, powerful family in New York. They're coming to Chicago tonight. 50 of them." Tamara's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, God. I'm going to send you and Destiny to Milwaukee. Mrs. Robinson's sister will take care of you until this is over." "Until this is over?" Tamara's voice cracked. "What does that mean? How long? Days, weeks, forever?" "I don't know." "Mr. Washington, I can't." She started pacing, her movements frantic. "I can't live like this, looking over my shoulder, wondering if today's the day they find us. Destiny can't live like this. She's 7 years old. She should be worried about homework and cartoons, not Russian gangsters." "I know. Then what are we supposed to do?" Marcus had been asking himself the same question since Volkov's call. He could run, take his money and disappear, start over somewhere else, somewhere the Russians couldn't find him. But that would mean leaving Tamara and Destiny to face this alone. It would mean breaking his promise. It would mean proving that the $5 bill in his pocket was worth nothing. "You're supposed to trust me," Marcus said. "One more time. Can you do that?" Tamara stared at him. This man she barely knew. This criminal who had saved her life. This stranger who had become the only thing standing between her daughter and death. "Do I have a choice?" "There's always a choice. But I'm asking you to choose me." Something shifted in Tamara's eyes. The fear was still there, but underneath it something else was growing. Something that looked almost like faith. "Jerome used to say that," she said softly. "Choose me. That's what he said on our first date, on our wedding day. Every time life got hard." She wiped her eyes. "I chose him every time, and he never let me down. Not once." "I'm not Jerome." "No, you're not." Tamara took a deep breath. "But Destiny chose you, and my daughter has never been wrong about people, so I'm going to trust her judgment." She stepped closer. "Don't make me regret it, Mr. Washington. Don't make my daughter regret it." "I won't." An hour later, Marcus stood at the head of the long table in La Familia's back room. The same room where he'd gathered his men the night before. The same faces, but more tired now, more wary. Word had spread about Volkov's call. Everyone knew what was coming. 50 men, Darnell said, breaking the silence. That's more than we've got. And these aren't street soldiers. Volkov's crew are professionals, ex-military, trained killers. I know. So, what's the play? We dig and fight defensive? No. Marcus shook his head. We go on offense. Hit them before they hit us. A murmur went through the room. Curtis spoke up. King, with all due respect, that's suicide. They're coming in force. We don't even know where they're staging. I do. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed them a text message. An address on the west side. An abandoned hotel near the airport. How did you get that? Darnell asked. I have friends in New York. People who owe me favors. Volkov thinks he's coming in quiet, but I've known his flight number since this morning. The mood in the room shifted. This wasn't a desperate last stand. This was a calculated strike. Here's the plan, Marcus continued. Volkov's people land at O'Hare at 6 p.m. They've got transportation arranged to the west side. Cars, vans, the works. They'll be at the hotel by 8 p.m. gearing up, getting ready to move on us around midnight. He pointed to the map on the table. We hit them at 9 p.m. Before they're ready, before they expect it. 3 teams. Darnell, you take the front. Curtis, you take the back. I'll lead the team through the roof. The roof? Darnell raised an eyebrow. Element of surprise. They'll be watching the doors, not the ceiling. And Volkov himself. Marcus's eyes went cold. He's mine. The room was silent. Then one by one the men nodded. They'd followed Marcus into danger before. They'd follow him again. One more thing, Marcus said. This isn't just about territory anymore. This isn't just about business. The Russians threatened a 7-year-old girl. They threatened to kill a child to get to me. He looked around the room. I don't know about you, but where I come from, that crosses a line. That makes it personal. Darnell stood up. It's personal for all of us, King. We grew up on these streets. Our mothers, our sisters, our daughters walk these streets. If we let the Russians come in here and threaten our children, we might as well hand them the keys to the city. So we fight, Marcus said. We fight? The room echoed. The hours crawled by. Marcus sent Tamara and Destiny to Milwaukee with Mrs. Robinson, watching their car disappear down the street until it was just a speck in the distance. Destiny had pressed her face against the window, waving until she couldn't see him anymore. She'd given him something before she left. A drawing made with crayons on a paper napkin. It showed a tall man in a black coat standing next to a little girl with beads in her hair. Above them she'd written in shaky letters, "My hero." Marcus folded it carefully and put it in his pocket next to the $5 bill. Then he went to prepare for war. At 5:47 p.m., Marcus got confirmation. Volkov's plane had landed. 30 minutes later, a convoy of black SUVs left the airport and headed west. At 8:15 p.m., Marcus's scouts reported movement at the abandoned hotel. 53 men fully armed setting up inside. Volkov himself was on the top floor coordinating the operation from a makeshift command center. At 8:45 p.m., Marcus gathered his men 2 blocks away. 47 soldiers armed and ready. Not as many as the Russians, but they had something the Russians didn't. They were fighting for their home. Remember, Marcus said, his voice low in the darkness. Quick and clean. We're not here to send a message. We're here to end this. Volkov doesn't leave that building alive. None of them do. Darnell checked his weapon. And if things go sideways, then we improvise. We've been doing this longer than they have. These streets are ours. Use them. At exactly 9:20 p.m., the assault began. Curtis's team hit the back entrance first, breaching the service door with a controlled explosion that sent Russian guards scrambling. Before they could react, Curtis's men were inside, moving fast. Weapons blazing. Darnell's team came through the front, 30 seconds later. The main lobby became a war zone in an instant. Glass shattered. Walls pockmarked with bullet holes. Russian soldiers fell before they could raise their guns. And on the roof, Marcus moved in silence. He'd brought only 5 men with him, his best, his most trusted. They crossed from the adjacent building on a makeshift bridge and dropped through a skylight into the top floor. The hallway was empty. Volkov's men were all downstairs dealing with the chaos. Exactly as Marcus had planned. He moved toward the command center weapon, raised footsteps, silent. The door was open. Inside, Alexei Volkov stood with his back to the entrance, watching multiple screens that showed the battle below. His men were losing. Badly. "You should have stayed in New York," Marcus said. Volkov spun around, reaching for his gun. Marcus shot it out of his hand before he could raise it. The Russian stumbled back, clutching his bleeding fingers. "You think this ends anything? Kill me, and 10 more will come. 100. You've started something you can't finish, Washington." "Maybe." Marcus stepped closer. "But you won't be around to see it." "Wait." Volkov raised his good hand. "Wait. We can make a deal. Money, territory, whatever you want. The Kozlov brothers were idiots. They shouldn't have touched those women. I told them, but they didn't listen. Let me make this right." "Make it right." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You called me this morning and threatened to kill a 7-year-old girl. You said you were going to murder a child because of what I did. There's no making that right." "I was angry. I didn't mean—" "You meant every word." Marcus raised his weapon. "And now you're going to pay for every word." Volkov's eyes went wide. "Please, I have a family, children. I have—" "So did Tamara Williams, so does Destiny. You didn't care about their family. Why should I care about yours? Because you're supposed to be better than me." Volkov's voice cracked. "That's what they say about you, isn't it? Marcus Washington, the king with a code, the criminal with honor. If you kill me like this, unarmed begging, you're no better than the Kozlovs were." Marcus paused. The Russian was right. This wasn't who he was supposed to be. He wasn't an executioner. He was a businessman, a leader, a man with rules. But then he thought about Destiny. Her small hand holding that $5 bill. Her voice saying, "This is all I have." He thought about Tamara, locked in a freezer for 3 days, waiting to be sold like property. He thought about the 12 other women caged like animals, waiting for a rescue that almost never came. And he thought about what would happen if he let Volkov live. The Russian would come back. He'd bring more men, more weapons, more violence. And eventually, he'd find Tamara and Destiny. He'd make good on his threat. Some men couldn't be reasoned with. Some men couldn't be scared off. Some men had to be stopped permanently. "You're right," Marcus said slowly. "I'm supposed to be better than you, but tonight I'm not going to be." He pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the empty room. Volkov crumpled to the floor, eyes still wide with disbelief. Marcus stood over the body, breathing hard. He'd killed before, many times, but it had always been business. It had always been clean. This was different. This was rage. This was revenge. This was everything he'd tried to keep locked away for 20 years. "King." Darnell's voice came through the earpiece. "Building secure. We've got casualties, but nothing critical. What's your status?" Marcus looked at Volkov's body one last time. "Status is complete. Volkov's down. Get the men out. We're done here." He turned and walked away without looking back. By midnight, it was over. The abandoned hotel burned behind them, consuming the evidence, turning everything to ash. Marcus's convoy moved through the quiet streets of Chicago, heading home. They'd won. The Russians were scattered, their leader dead, their invasion crushed before it could begin. But Marcus didn't feel like he'd won anything. He sat in the back of his Escalade, staring at the $5 bill in his hand. Destiny's money. The payment for a contract he'd never expected to fulfill. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Robinson. "Arrived safely. Destiny's asking about you. She wants to know if the bad men are gone." Marcus typed back, "Tell her yes." Tell her they're never coming back." He put the phone away and leaned back against the seat. Outside, the city slept unaware of the war that had been fought in its shadows. Tomorrow people would wake up and go to work, go to school, live their lives. They'd never know how close they came to something terrible. That was how it should be. That was what Marcus protected. Not just territory, not just money, but the illusion of safety that let normal people live normal lives. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a picture. Destiny smiling at the camera, holding up her hand in a peace sign. Underneath, Mrs. Robinson had written, "She says thank you. She says you're still her hero." Marcus stared at the picture for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out the drawing Destiny had given him. The tall man in the black coat. The little girl with beads in her hair. The words, "My hero," written above in shaky crayon letters. He wasn't a hero. He knew that. Heroes didn't do the things he'd done. Heroes didn't have blood on their hands and darkness in their hearts. But maybe for one little girl he could pretend. Maybe that was enough. The Escalade pulled up to La Familia. Darnell was waiting outside, his face grim. "King, we need to talk." "Can it wait? I haven't slept in 36 hours. "No, it can't." Darnell held up his phone. "I just got word from our contact in New York. Before Volkov left Brighton Beach, he made a call. To Moscow." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. Moscow. The Volkov family has connections to the Bratva, the real Bratva. We're not talking street gangs anymore, King. We're talking international organized crime, billions of dollars, thousands of soldiers. What did the call say? Darnell's face was pale. Volkov told them about you, about what you did to the Kozlovs. He said if anything happened to him, they should make an example out of Chicago. He paused. King, we just killed the cousin of a Bratva boss. This isn't over. This is just the beginning. Marcus stood in the cold night air processing the words. He'd won tonight, but in winning, he'd made an enemy bigger than anything he'd ever faced. The $5 bill felt heavy in his pocket. The drawing felt heavier. Call everyone back, he said finally. Full lockdown. No one goes anywhere alone. And get me everything we have on the Bratva's Chicago connections. Every name, every address, every weakness. King, maybe we should consider what running? Marcus shook his head. I made a promise, Darnell. I told a 7-year-old girl that I would keep her safe. I told her mother that the bad men would never come back. You can't fight the Bratva. No one can. Marcus looked up at the sky. The stars were hidden behind clouds, but he knew they were there. Somewhere up there his mother was watching, judging, waiting to see what kind of man her son had become. Then I'll die trying, he said, but I won't break my promise, not to her, not to anyone. He walked into the restaurant, leaving Darnell standing alone in the darkness. Inside, his men waited, tired, wounded, but loyal, ready to follow him into whatever hell came next. Marcus stood at the head of the table one more time. We've got a new enemy, he said. Bigger than anything we've faced before. Some of you might want to walk away. I won't blame you if you do. This isn't your fight. No one moved. But for those who stay, I'm making you a promise. The same promise I made to that little girl with the $5 bill. We will protect our people. We will protect our streets. And we will make anyone who threatens us regret the day they heard the name Chicago. He pulled out the $5 bill and set it on the table. This is what we're fighting for. Not money, not territory, but the courage of a child who believed in us, who believed that even in the darkest parts of this city, good could still win. He looked around the room. Are you with me? One by one, every man in the room stood up. We're with you, King. Marcus nodded slowly. The war had just begun, and he was ready to fight it. 3 days passed without incident. Marcus didn't sleep. Not really. He caught hours here and there sitting upright in his office chair, one hand always near his weapon. Every creak of the floorboards, Every car that slowed outside La Familia sent his heart racing. The Bratva was coming. He knew it. Darnell knew it. Every man in his organization knew it. The only question was when. On the fourth morning, Marcus received a call from Milwaukee. "Mr. King." Destiny's voice came through the phone, small and uncertain. "Are you okay? Mrs. Robinson said I shouldn't bother you, but I had a bad dream and I wanted to make sure you weren't hurt." Marcus closed his eyes. This child, this brave, foolish, wonderful child. "I'm fine, little one. Just busy with grown-up stuff." "Mama says grown-up stuff is code for dangerous stuff." "Your mama's pretty smart." "I know." Destiny paused. "Mr. King, when can we come home? I miss my room. I miss my school. I miss my friend Keisha. She probably thinks I moved away without telling her." Marcus rubbed his face with his free hand. "How do you explain to a 7-year-old that she can't go home because international criminals want to kill her?" "Soon, Destiny. I promise. Just a little longer." "You always keep your promises. That's what Mama says." Her voice brightened. "She says you're a man of your word. She says that's rare these days. Your mama says a lot of things. She likes you." Destiny giggled. "She doesn't say it, but I can tell. She gets this look when she talks about you. The same look she used to get when she talked about Daddy." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. "How's school? Mrs. Robinson's sister signed you up for classes there, right?" "Yeah, it's okay. The kids are nice. But the teacher makes us do too much math." She groaned dramatically. "I hate math, Mr. King. It's the worst thing ever invented." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "Math's important, little one. You need it for counting money. I only have $5. That's easy to count. You'll have more someday. Trust me. Will I be rich like you?" Marcus laughed, actually laughed for the first time in days. "I'm not rich, Destiny. I just have resources." "That sounds like rich people talk." "Maybe it is." He heard voices in the background. "Is that your mama?" "Yeah, she wants to talk to you. Hold on." Shuffling sounds. Then Tamara's voice, warmer than he expected. "Mr. Washington, I hope she wasn't bothering you." "Never. She's the best part of my day." Silence. Then, "You sound tired." "I am tired." Is it safe yet? Can we come home?" Marcus wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her everything was fine, that the danger had passed, that she could bring Destiny back to Chicago and resume their normal lives. But he'd promised not to make her regret trusting him, and lies would do exactly that. "Not yet," he said. "There are complications. I'm handling them." "What kind of complications?" "The kind I can't discuss on the phone." Tamara was quiet for a moment. "You're scaring me, Marcus." It was the first time she'd called him by his first name. Something about it made his chest tight. "I know. And I'm sorry. But I need you to stay there a little longer. Keep Destiny safe. Keep yourself safe. Can you do that for me?" "I can. But Marcus," her voice dropped. "Whatever you're doing, whatever's happening, please be careful. Destiny needs you to come back. She's already lost her father. I don't want her to lose anyone else." "She won't. Promise me." Marcus hesitated. Promises were dangerous. Promises were chains. Once you made one, you had to keep it no matter the cost. But for Tamara Williams, for her daughter, he found himself saying the words anyway. "I promise." He hung up and sat in the silence, staring at the phone in his hand. Darnell knocked on the door. "King, we've got something." Marcus stood immediately. "What?" "Our contact in New York came through. The Bratva's sending someone, a cleaner. Name's Ivan Petrov." Darnell handed over a photograph. "Former FSB, trained assassin, body count in the triple digits. He's the guy they send when they want to make a statement." Marcus studied the photo. Cold eyes, scarred face. The look of a man who had stopped feeling anything a long time ago. He landed at O'Hare 2 hours ago. Alone. Alone. They sent one man. That's what worries me. Darnell shook his head. Volkov brought 50 soldiers and failed. The Bratva sends one guy. Either they're testing us, or this Petrov is worse than anything we've faced before. Marcus processed this. Where is he now? Unknown. He disappeared after customs. No hotel check-in, no car rental, nothing. Ghost protocol. He's already working. Marcus felt ice in his veins. He's been here 2 hours and we don't know where he is. That means he's watching us. Or someone we know. The words hit Marcus like a punch. His hand went to his phone before he could think. Mrs. Robinson, he said. The sisters in Milwaukee. We need to warn them. He dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. No answer. Marcus's heart stopped. He dialed again. Same result. Darnell, get a car, now. King, Milwaukee is 90 minutes away. If something's already happened, get the car. They broke every speed limit on the highway. Marcus sat in the passenger seat calling Tamara's phone over and over. Each time it went to voicemail. Each time his fear grew. Please, he thought. Please let them be okay. Please don't let me be too late. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Marcus answered. Who is this? Mr. Washington. The voice was heavily accented. Russian. My name is Ivan Petrov. I believe you've been looking for me. Where are they? The women, they're safe, for now. Petrov sounded almost bored. The old one, the mother and the child. All alive. All comfortable. If you hurt them, hurt them. Mr. Washington, I'm not a monster. I don't hurt women and children, not unless I'm forced to. A pause. But I will be forced to if you don't do exactly as I say. Marcus gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. What do you want? A meeting. Just you and me. No soldiers, no weapons, no tricks. You come alone, or the little girl loses a finger every hour until you do. Where? The old steel mill on 95th. 1 hour. Petrov's voice hardened. And Mr. Washington, I know you're already on your way to Milwaukee. Turn around. If I see anyone near this house except my own people, the deal is off. And you'll be burying 3 bodies instead of having a conversation. The line went dead. Marcus sat frozen, phone still pressed to his ear. Darnell glanced over. King. What did he say? Turn around. What? Turn the car around. Darnell yanked the wheel, cutting across 3 lanes of traffic. Horns blared, tires screeched, but he got them onto the exit ramp heading back toward Chicago. Talk to me, King. What's happening? He has them. Marcus's voice was hollow. Petrov has Tamara and Destiny. He wants a meeting, alone, 1 hour. That's suicide. He's an assassin. You walk in there alone, you don't walk out. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. We can hit them. Figure out where he's keeping the hostages. Run a rescue operation. He said he'd kill them if he sees anyone except his own people. He's not bluffing, Darnell. Men like him don't bluff. Darnell's jaw tightened. So what, you're just going to walk into a trap? I'm going to do what I have to do. Marcus turned to face his oldest friend. If I don't come back, you take over. Everything. The territory, the businesses, the men. It's yours. King. I'm serious, Darnell. Someone has to keep this city safe. Someone has to make sure Tamara and Destiny have protection, even if I'm gone. This is insane. You're talking like you're already dead. I might be. Marcus pulled out the $5 bill and looked at it. But I made a promise, and I don't break my promises, not even for my own life. The old steel mill loomed against the gray sky. Abandoned for 20 years, it was the kind of place where bad things happened, and nobody asked questions. Marcus got out of the car alone. No weapon, no backup. Just himself and the $5 bill in his pocket. He walked through the rusted gate, footsteps echoing in the emptiness. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. Whatever happened next, he wouldn't show fear. He couldn't. "Mr. Washington," Petrov's voice came from somewhere above. "Punctual, I appreciate that." Marcus looked up. The Russian stood on a catwalk, looking down at him with those cold, empty eyes. "Where are they?" "Safe. For now." Petrov began descending a metal staircase, his footsteps measured and unhurried. "I must say you've caused quite a stir in Moscow. First the Kozlov brothers, then Volkov. 3 of our people dead because of one man." He reached the ground and stopped about 20 feet away. "They're calling you the King of Chicago. Did you know that I didn't ask for that name?" "No. Names like that are earned." Petrov tilted his head. "Tell me something. Why? Why did you do it? The Kozlovs were nothing to you. Their victims were nothing to you. Why start a war over strangers?" Marcus thought about the question, thought about all the answers he could give. "A little girl paid me $5, he said finally. "She asked me to save her mother. I said yes." Petrov stared at him. Then unexpectedly he laughed. $5. You started a war with the Bratva over $5 and a child's request." He shook his head. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the stupidest." "Maybe both." "Maybe." Petrov's expression shifted, becoming serious. "I've been doing this job for 30 years, Mr. Washington. I've killed politicians, generals, businessmen, people with armies at their command. Not one of them walked into a trap like this willingly. Not one of them was willing to die for someone else." "What's your point?" "My point is that I'm curious." Petrov took a step closer. "The Bratva sent me here to kill you, to make an example, to show Chicago what happens when someone challenges our authority." Another step. "But after watching you these past few days, I'm wondering if killing you would be a mistake." Marcus didn't move. "What do you mean?" "I mean that men like you are rare. Men with conviction. Men who keep their word." Petrov stopped just a few feet away. "The Bratva values loyalty above all else, and you, Mr. Washington, have demonstrated more loyalty to a 7-year-old girl than most of my colleagues have shown to their own families. Is this going somewhere?" "Yes." Petrov reached into his jacket. Marcus tensed, ready to fight, ready to die. But Petrov didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a phone. "I have a proposition for you," the Russian said. "One that could end this war before it truly begins." "I'm listening." "The Bratva doesn't actually care about the Kozlovs or Volkov. They were small fish, useful but replaceable. What we care about is Chicago. It's a valuable market. We want a foothold here." Petrov held up the phone. "I've been authorized to offer you a deal. Partnership instead of war. You keep your territory, your operations, your people. In exchange, you grant us certain privileges, distribution rights, safe passage, a piece of the action. And if I say no, then I kill you here, go back to Milwaukee, and eliminate everyone who matters to you, slowly." Petrov's eyes were ice. "The child first, so her mother can watch." Marcus felt rage building inside him. The kind of rage that made men do stupid things. The kind of rage that got people killed. But underneath the rage, his mind was working. Calculating. Looking for angles. "What kind of privileges?" he asked. 10% of your earnings. Access to your distribution networks. Protection for our people operating in your territory." Petrov shrugged. "Small price for peace." 10% is not small. It's smaller than death." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Destiny waiting somewhere in Milwaukee, probably terrified. He thought about Tamara holding her daughter, praying for rescue. He thought about his men, his territory, everything he'd built over 20 years. And he thought about his mother. What would Lorraine Washington say if she could see him now, making deals with the people who'd threatened to murder a child? "Let me see them first," Marcus said. "Tamara and Destiny. Before I agree to anything, I need to see that they're alive and unharmed." Petrov considered this. Then he nodded. Fair enough. He lifted the phone and made a call in rapid Russian. Then he turned the screen toward Marcus. Video call. Tamara's face appeared pale and frightened but intact. Beside her, Destiny clutched her mother's arm, eyes red from crying. "Mr. King." Destiny's voice cracked. "Mr. King, I'm scared. The bad men came and they took us, and they won't tell us anything, and I want to go home." "I know, little one, I know." Marcus kept his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "I'm going to fix this. I promised, remember, and I always keep my promises." "Are you going to save us again?" "Yes, I am." Tamara leaned toward the camera. "Marcus, don't do anything stupid. Whatever they're asking, it's not worth your life. We'll figure something else out." "There is nothing else." Marcus looked at Petrov. "End the call." The Russian complied. "So," Petrov said, "do we have a deal?" Marcus thought about everything he'd built, everything he'd sacrificed, everything he'd become. Then he thought about a $5 bill and a little girl's faith. "No." Petrov blinked. "Excuse me. No deal." Marcus squared his shoulders. "You want to know why? Because if I agree to this, I'm not the man that little girl believes in anymore. I'm not the man who keeps his promises. I'm just another criminal who sold out when things got hard." "You'd rather die." "I'd rather be the person she thinks I am." Marcus took a step forward. "Even if it kills me." Petrov stared at him. For a long moment, neither man moved. Then the Russian did something Marcus didn't expect. He smiled. "You know," Petrov said slowly, "I've killed a lot of people in my life. Bad people. Good people. People who begged people, who fought people, who accepted their fate with dignity." He shook his head. "But I've never met anyone quite like you, Marcus Washington." "Is that supposed to be a compliment? It's supposed to be the truth." Petrov put the phone away. "I'm not going to kill you today." Marcus didn't trust his ears. "What?" "I said I'm not going to kill you, and I'm going to release the woman and child. Tonight." "Why?" Petrov walked past Marcus toward the exit. He stopped at the door and looked back. "Because 30 years ago, someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. A man who saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." His voice softened just barely. "I'm going to tell the Bratva that you're too valuable as an ally to waste as an enemy. That partnership is better than war. Whether they agree..." He shrugged. "That's not my problem. And if they don't agree, then they'll send someone else. Someone without my flexibility." Petrov opened the door. "Use the time wisely, Mr. Washington. Build your defenses. Strengthen your alliances. Because if the Bratva decides you're more trouble than you're worth, not even God will be able to save you." He walked out. Marcus stood alone in the empty steel mill heart, pounding, barely able to believe what had just happened. He pulled out his phone and called Darnell. "King, what happened? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. He let me go." "He what?" "Long story. I need you to get to Milwaukee, now. Petrov said he's releasing Tamara and Destiny tonight. I want our people there to make sure it happens." "King, this doesn't make sense. Why would he?" "I don't know, and I don't care. Just get them home safe." He hung up and walked out of the steel mill into the fading light. Against all odds, he was still alive. Tamara and Destiny were coming home. The immediate threat had passed. But Petrov's warning echoed in his mind. The Bratva wasn't done with him. They were just getting started. Marcus pulled out the $5 bill and looked at it one more time. "I'm still here, little one," he said to no one. "I'm still keeping my promise." Then he got in his car and drove toward home, knowing that the hardest part was yet to come. 2 weeks had passed since Petrov walked away. 2 weeks of waiting. 2 weeks of watching. 2 weeks of Marcus jumping at every shadow, every unexpected phone call, every car that lingered too long outside La Familia. But the Bratva never came. Darnell's contacts in New York reported that Petrov had delivered his recommendation. Partnership, not war. The bosses in Moscow were deliberating, weighing the costs and benefits of continuing their vendetta against a man who had proven surprisingly difficult to kill. For now, Chicago was safe. Tamara and Destiny came home on a Tuesday morning. Marcus was waiting at Mrs. Robinson's store when their car pulled up. He told himself he wouldn't be there, that it wasn't his place, that he should maintain professional distance. But his feet had carried him there anyway, and now he stood on the sidewalk like a nervous teenager, waiting for a first date. The car door opened. Destiny exploded out before it even stopped moving. "Mr. King." She ran at full speed, braids flying, beads clicking, and launched herself into his arms. Marcus caught her, lifting her up, holding her tight against his chest. "Hey, little one," he said, his voice rough. "Missed you too." "I knew you'd save us again. I knew it." She pulled back to look at his face, her small hands cupping his cheeks. "Mama said you walked into a trap all by yourself. She said you were willing to die for us. Is that true?" Marcus glanced at Tamara, who was walking toward them more slowly, her expression unreadable. "Your mama talks too much." "That's what she says about Mrs. Robinson." Destiny grinned. "But seriously, is it true?" "I did what I had to do." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." Destiny studied him with those wise, too-old eyes. Then she hugged him again, tighter this time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for saving Mama the first time, for saving us the second time, for being real." "Real?" "Yeah, real." She pulled back again. "Most grown-ups lie. They say things they don't mean. They make promises they don't keep. But you're different. You say what you mean, and you mean what you say." She touched his face gently. "That's why you're my hero, Mr. King. Not because you're strong or scary or powerful, but because you're real." Marcus didn't know what to say. His throat was tight, his eyes burning with something he hadn't felt in years. "Okay, baby." Tamara's voice broke the moment. "Let Mr. Washington breathe. He's got business to attend to, I'm sure." Destiny wiggled down from his arms and ran to hug Mrs. Robinson, who had appeared in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. Marcus and Tamara stood facing each other on the sidewalk. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Thank you seems inadequate," Tamara said finally. "It's enough." "No, it's not." She stepped closer. "You walked into a death trap alone, for my daughter, for me, after everything you'd already done." Her voice cracked. "Why, we're nobody to you. We're just strangers." "You're not strangers anymore." "Then what are we?" Marcus thought about the question. He thought about the $5 bill still in his pocket. He thought about Destiny's drawing now framed in his office. He thought about the way his heart had stopped when Petrov said he had them. "Your family," he said, "whether you want to be or not." Tamara's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, you don't have to say anything. You don't owe me anything. I just need you to understand that as long as I'm breathing, nobody touches you or Destiny, ever. That's not a promise anymore. That's just fact." She stared at him. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and kissed him. It was brief, soft, over before Marcus could fully register what was happening. When she pulled back, her cheeks were wet with tears. "That's my thank you," she said, "for being the man my daughter thinks you are." Then she turned and walked into Mrs. Robinson's store, leaving Marcus standing alone on the sidewalk, touching his lips like a man in a dream. The next few days passed in a strange kind of peace. Marcus found himself visiting Mrs. Robinson's store more often than necessary, always for legitimate reasons, of course. Checking on security, reviewing the situation, making sure there were no signs of Bratva surveillance. But somehow those visits always ended with him sitting in the back room watching Destiny do her homework while Tamara made coffee and told him about her day. It felt domestic, normal, like something from a life he'd never allowed himself to imagine. On Friday afternoon, Destiny slammed her math book shut in frustration. I hate fractions. They don't make any sense. Marcus looked up from the newspaper he'd been pretending to read. What's the problem? Everything. All of it. Mrs. Patterson says I have to add 3/4 plus 2/3. But how do you add things that aren't even the same? Come here. Destiny dragged herself over, slumping into the chair beside him with maximum dramatic flair. You need a common denominator, Marcus said. Something both numbers can agree on. That's what Mrs. Patterson said, but I don't know what that means. Marcus pulled a handful of coins from his pocket and spread them on the table. Okay, say you have 3/4. He pushed 3/4 forward. And I have 2/3 of a dollar. But I don't have thirds of a dollar, so I need to convert it. A dollar is 4/4, right? So 2/3 of 4 is... He waited. 2 2/3 quarters. Destiny guessed. Close. Let's think about it differently. Marcus grabbed a napkin and started writing. To find a common denominator, you multiply the two bottom numbers together. 4 times 3 is 12. So now we're talking about 12ths instead of 4ths and 3rds. That seems more complicated, not less. Stay with me. 3/4 becomes 9/12. 2/3 becomes 8/12. Now they speak the same language. 9 plus 8 is 17. Destiny's eyes widened. 17/12, which is, she thought about it, 1 5/12. Perfect. Destiny stared at the napkin, then at Marcus, then back at the napkin. You just made math make sense, she said slowly. That's literally impossible. Nobody can make math make sense. I ran numbers for 20 years, little one. Percentages, cuts, distributions. Math was my whole job. But you're a... She lowered her voice. You're a gangster. Gangsters don't do math. How do you think we count the money? Destiny burst out laughing. It was the most beautiful sound Marcus had ever heard. Tamara appeared in the doorway watching them with an expression that made Marcus's chest tight. Dinner's almost ready, she said. You're staying, right? It wasn't really a question. I guess I am. They ate together that night. The four of them, if you counted Mrs. Robinson, who insisted on joining them, even though it was her store and her kitchen. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread. Food that reminded Marcus of his childhood, of his mother's kitchen, of a time before everything went dark. After dinner, Destiny fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from her war with fractions. Mrs. Robinson excused herself to check on the store. And suddenly, Marcus and Tamara were alone. She adores you, Tamara said, nodding toward her sleeping daughter. You know that, right? She's a good kid. She's a great kid. But that's not what I meant. Tamara turned to face him fully. She hasn't connected with anyone like this since Jerome died. She was closed off, angry. For months she wouldn't talk about him, wouldn't look at photos, wouldn't even say his name. Grief does strange things to people. It does. But then you came along, this big scary crime boss who was supposed to be everything dangerous in the world, and she just opened up, like a flower finding sunlight. Tamara shook her head. I don't understand it. Neither do I. Maybe there's nothing to understand. Maybe some things just are. She reached over and touched his hand. Marcus, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me. Okay. What happens now? With us, I mean. With whatever this is. She gestured between them. Because I'm feeling things I haven't felt since my husband died. And I need to know if I'm making a mistake. Marcus looked at her hand on his, small, warm, real. I'm not a good man, Tamara. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew. Things that can't be forgiven. I know who you are. Do you really? He pulled his hand away. I've killed people. Not in self-defense. Not because I had to. Because they were in my way. Because it was convenient. Because I was angry. He stood up and walked to the window. The man your daughter thinks I am the hero. He doesn't exist. He never did. Then who saved us from that freezer? Tamara's voice was steady, Who walked into a trap alone to keep us safe? Who sat at this table and taught my daughter fractions like it was the most natural thing in the world? That's different. How? Because... Marcus struggled to find the words. Because you're different. Both of you. You make me want to be the person destiny thinks I am. But wanting isn't the same as being. Tamara stood and walked over to him. She put her hand on his back, feeling the tension in his shoulders. Jerome wasn't perfect, she said softly. He had demons. He made mistakes. There were days I wanted to leave him, days I wondered why I ever said yes when he proposed. She turned him to face her. But he loved me. He loved destiny. And every day, he tried to be better than the day before. That's all I'm asking from you, Marcus. Not perfection, just effort. And if my past catches up with us, the Bratva, the cops, all the enemies I've made, then we face it together. She put her hand on his chest over his heart. I lost one man I loved. I'm not going to lose another, because I was too scared to try. Marcus looked into her eyes. He saw fear there, yes, but also hope. Also courage. Also something deeper. Something he'd convinced himself he'd never find. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to be a partner, a father figure, a normal person. Neither do I. Tamara smiled. But destiny gave you $5 to save me. Maybe I can give you something too. What? A chance. She went up on her toes and kissed him again. Longer this time. Deeper. Don't waste it. 1 month later, Marcus made a decision that shocked everyone who knew him. He was sitting in La Familia with Darnell reviewing the week's business when he said the words that changed everything. I'm getting out. Darnell nearly choked on his coffee. You're what? Getting out, retiring, walking away. Marcus pushed the paperwork aside. I'm done, Darnell. King, you can't just... You've built an empire, 20 years. Everything you've worked for. Everything I've worked for almost got a 7-year-old girl killed. Marcus's voice was firm. I've been thinking about it for weeks. What's the point of all this? The money, the power, the territory. None of it matters if I lose the only things that actually do. Tamara and destiny. Yes. Darnell sat back studying his boss's face. You're serious. Dead serious. I want you to take over. Everything. The businesses, the crews, the territory. You've earned it. And you, what are you going to do? Open a flower shop. Become a math tutor. Despite himself, Marcus smiled. I don't know. Something legal. Something that lets me sleep at night. The Bratva won't just let you walk away. I've thought about that. Petrov said they value loyalty. Well, I'm going to prove my loyalty to something bigger than them. To a family. To a life. Marcus met Darnell's eyes. And if they come for me anyway, at least I'll die as the man destiny thinks I am. Not as the monster I've been. Darnell was quiet for a long time. 20 years, he finally said. 20 years I've followed you. Into wars, into danger, into situations that should have killed us both. He shook his head slowly. And in all that time, I've never seen you this sure about anything. Because I've never had anything worth being sure about. The girl changed you. Both of them did. Darnell reached across the table and clasped Marcus's hand. Then go. Live your life. Be happy. His voice was rough with emotion. You've earned that too, King. More than anyone I know. The transition took 3 months. Marcus transferred ownership of La Familia to Darnell. He sold his interests in the various businesses he'd accumulated over the years. He paid off debts, settled scores, tied up loose ends that had been dangling for decades. When it was done, Marcus Washington was no longer the king of Chicago's South Side. He was just a man with a modest savings account and a small apartment near Tamara and Destiny's building. He enrolled in community college of all things, business administration. Tamara had laughed when he told her, but it felt right. A fresh start. A new foundation. On the first day of classes, Marcus sat in a room full of students half his age feeling ridiculous. Who was he kidding? A 47-year-old former crime boss taking notes on supply chain management like it mattered. His phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. "Good luck on your first day. I told everyone at school my friend is going to college. They think that's so cool. Don't forget, common denominators are your friend. Love, your favorite client." Attached was a photo of her giving a thumbs-up, beads in her hair smile bright enough to light up the whole city. Marcus looked at that photo for a long time. Then he put his phone away, opened his notebook, and started taking notes. 6 months after walking away from his empire, Marcus proposed to Tamara. He did it simply without fanfare. They were in her apartment watching a movie, while Destiny slept in the next room. He'd been carrying the ring for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Tamara. I need to ask you something. She turned to look at him, and something in his expression made her pause the movie. What is it? Marcus pulled out the small box and opened it. Inside was a modest diamond ring. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed money or power, just a promise. "I know I'm not what you imagined," he said. "I know I come with baggage, a past, enemies, a reputation that might follow me forever." He took her hand. "But I love you. I love Destiny. And I want to spend whatever time I have left trying to deserve both of you." Tamara stared at the ring. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You already deserve us," she whispered. "You deserved us the moment you took that $5 bill. Is that a yes?" She laughed through her tears. "Yes, Marcus, it's a yes." He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. From the doorway, a small voice spoke. "I knew it." They both turned. Destiny stood there in her pajamas, grinning so wide it looked like her face might split. "I knew you were going to marry Mama. I told everyone at school." She ran and jumped onto the couch between them. "Does this mean you're going to be my dad now?" Marcus looked at Tamara, who nodded through her tears. "If you'll have me," he said. Destiny threw her arms around his neck. "I've been having you since I gave you $5, she said. "You're stuck with us now, Mr. King. Forever." Marcus held her tight. Over her shoulder he met Tamara's eyes. "Forever sounds about right," he said. The wedding was small. Just family and close friends. Mrs. Robinson officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Darnell was the best man. He showed up in a suit that probably cost more than Marcus's entire new wardrobe, but he didn't say a word about the humble ceremony. "You look happy," Darnell said, standing beside Marcus at the makeshift altar in Mrs. Robinson's backyard. "I am happy. Never thought I'd see the day. Marcus Washington family man." Neither did I. The music started. Everyone turned. Destiny came first, walking down the aisle with exaggerated solemnity, scattering flower petals from a basket that was almost too big for her to carry. Then Tamara appeared. She wore a simple white dress. Nothing expensive, nothing elaborate. But to Marcus, she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She walked toward him with steady steps, eyes locked on his face, smile radiant. When she reached him, she took his hands. "Ready," she whispered. "I've been ready since you kissed me on that sidewalk." Mrs. Robinson cleared her throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Marcus Washington and Tamara Williams. Two people who found each other in the darkest of circumstances and chose to walk toward light together." She looked at Marcus. "Marcus, do you take Tamara to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Marcus squeezed Tamara's hands. "I do." "And do you, Tamara, take Marcus to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Tamara's voice was clear and strong. "I do." Mrs. Robinson smiled. Then by the power vested in me, by the state of Illinois and the internet, I now pronounce you husband and wife." She winked at Marcus. "You may kiss your bride." Marcus pulled Tamara close and kissed her while Destiny cheered, and Darnell wiped his eyes when he thought no one was looking. When they broke apart, Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. The $5 bill. He'd kept it. All these months. Through everything. "This belongs to you," he said to Destiny, pressing it into her hand. "You paid for a miracle. I think you earned the change." Destiny looked at the crumpled bill, then up at her new father. "Keep it," she said. "For the next person who needs help." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "You're something else, you know that." "I know." She grinned. "I get it from my mom." They all laughed. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Washington understood what happiness really meant. 10 years passed, like water through fingers. Destiny Williams Washington stood at the podium of Chicago Southside Community Center, looking out at the crowd gathered for the annual scholarship ceremony. She was 17 now, tall and graceful, with her mother's warm eyes and her biological father's determined jaw. The beads in her braids had been replaced by elegant twists, but that fierce spirit remained unchanged. "When I was 7 years old," she began, her voice steady and clear, "I walked up to a stranger and gave him $5. Laughter rippled through the audience. In the front row, Marcus sat beside Tamara, his hair now more gray than black, his face lined with years, but softened by something it had never held before: peace. "I know that sounds ridiculous. $5. That was my lunch money for the whole week. But my mama had been taken by bad men and nobody would help us. Not the police, not the teachers, not the neighbors who saw everything and pretended they didn't." Destiny paused, finding Marcus's eyes in the crowd. "So, I found someone who would." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and crumpled. Even from the front row, Marcus recognized it. The $5 bill. The same one he'd given back to her on his wedding day, the same one she'd told him to keep for the next person who needed help. "This $5 has been in my family for 10 years. My dad, Marcus Washington, he tried to give it back to me the day he married my mama. I told him to keep it. He did. And every year on the anniversary of the night he saved my mama, he'd ask me if I was ready to take it back yet." She held up the bill so everyone could see. "Every year I said no, because I knew that as long as he had it, he'd remember. He'd remember the promise he made to a scared little girl. He'd remember that courage isn't about being big or strong or powerful. It's about doing what's right, even when you're terrified." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. "Last week my dad gave me this bill for the last time. He said I was ready now. He said it was my turn to carry the promise." Marcus felt Tamara's hand squeeze his. He squeezed back. "So today I'm announcing the creation of the $5 Foundation. We're going to help mothers and children who have nowhere else to turn. We're going to be the someone who shows up when everyone else looks away." Applause erupted through the room. Destiny waited for it to fade. "My dad taught me that one person can change everything. One decision. One moment of courage. One $5 bill held out with shaking hands." She looked directly at Marcus now, tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you, Dad, for keeping your promise, for becoming the man I always knew you could be, for showing me that heroes don't wear capes. They just show up when it matters." The applause was thunderous this time. Marcus stood unable to stay seated, and Destiny ran down from the podium to throw her arms around him. "I love you, Dad," she whispered into his chest. "I love you too, little one." His voice was rough with emotion, more than you'll ever know. After the ceremony, Marcus found himself standing alone on the center's back patio. The Chicago skyline glittered in the distance, a city that had once been his kingdom and was now simply his home. "You okay?" He turned. Darnell stood in the doorway, older now. His own hair silvered his frame, slightly stooped. He'd run Marcus's former empire for a decade, keeping it profitable and surprisingly clean. The violence had faded. The drugs had been phased out. What remained was a network of legitimate businesses that employed half the South Side. "I'm better than okay," Marcus said. "I'm watching my daughter change the world." "She's something special, that one." Darnell walked over to stand beside him. "Reminds me of someone else who used to think they could take on anything. I was arrogant. She's just brave. Maybe there's not as much difference as you think." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. "Petrov called me yesterday," Darnell said. Marcus tensed. Despite a decade of peace, the name still triggered something primal. "And he's dying. Cancer. Has maybe 6 months." Darnell pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a text message. "He wants to see you. Before the end." "Why?" "Didn't say. Just said there's something you need to know. Something about that night at the steel mill." Marcus stared at the message. Even Petrov. The man who had held his family's lives in his hands and chosen to let them go. The man whose mercy had made everything since possible. "Where is he?" "New York, Brighton Beach. I can have a plane ready in an hour." Marcus thought about Tamara inside, celebrating their daughter's achievement. He thought about the peaceful life he'd built, the careful distance he'd maintained from his former world. Then he thought about unanswered questions, about debts unpaid, about the strange bond that forms between men who face death together. "Tell him I'm coming." The flight to New York was short, but felt endless. Marcus sat alone watching clouds pass beneath the window, thinking about all the paths that had led him to this moment. A 7-year-old girl with $5, a mother in a freezer, a war that had almost consumed everything, and somehow, against all odds, a happy ending. But happy endings, Marcus had learned, were never really endings. They were just pauses in longer stories. Brighton Beach hadn't changed much in 10 years. Same Russian signs, same old men playing chess in the parks, same sense of a community that kept its secrets close. The address Darnell had given him led to a modest apartment building, 3rd floor, number 307. Marcus knocked. The door opened. A woman in her 60s stood there, her face tired but not unkind. "You're Washington," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "He's been waiting." She stepped aside. "Don't upset him. He doesn't have the strength anymore." Marcus walked through the small apartment to a bedroom in the back. Ivan Petrov lay in a hospital bed surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. He looked nothing like the cold assassin Marcus remembered. He looked old, fragile, human. "You came." Petrov's voice was a whisper of what it had been. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I." Marcus sat in the chair beside the bed. "Darnell said you had something to tell me." "I do." Petrov coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made Marcus wince. "Something I should have told you 10 years ago. But I wasn't ready then. Too proud. Too stubborn." "What is it?" Petrov closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. "That night at the steel mill. When I let you go. When I chose not to kill you and your family." He opened his eyes. "I told you it was because you reminded me of someone. Someone who gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one." "I remember." "I lied." Petrov's gaze was intense despite his weakness. "That wasn't why." "Then why?" "Because of the girl, Destiny." Petrov's voice cracked. "She reminded me of my daughter." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. "Your daughter?" "Katya. She was 7 years old when she died. Same age as your Destiny was back then." Tears leaked from Petrov's eyes. "I was working a job in Moscow. Important target. Big payday. I left Katya with her mother and went to do what I did best." He paused, struggling to breathe. "While I was gone, they came for me. My enemies. They couldn't find me, so they found my family instead." His face contorted with old grief. "My wife, my daughter, both of them, gone because of what I was, because of the monster I'd become." Marcus didn't speak. He couldn't. "When I saw that video call, When I saw your Destiny crying for her mother. I saw my Katya. Petrov grabbed Marcus's hand with surprising strength. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be the monster again. I couldn't take another little girl's parent away. So you let us go. I let you go because killing you would have been killing my Katya all over again. Petrov's grip loosened. I've thought about that night every day for 10 years, wondering if I made the right choice, wondering if you deserved the mercy I gave you. And what did you decide? I decided. Petrov smiled weakly. I decided that you were the only person who ever made my Katya's death mean something. You took the chance I gave you, and you built something good. A family. A life. A foundation that's going to help children like her. Like Destiny. He coughed again, worse this time. That's why I asked you to come. I wanted to tell you that before I die. I wanted you to know that my daughter's death led to your daughter's life. And that makes everything I've done, all the blood on my hands, it makes it worth something. Even if it's just one thing. Marcus sat in silence, processing the weight of what he'd just heard. Petrov. Ivan. Call me Ivan. Ivan. Marcus leaned forward. Thank you. For telling me. For letting me go that night. For giving me a chance I probably didn't deserve. You deserved it more than you know. Ivan's eyes were closing. You walked into that steel mill knowing you would die. You did it for a woman and a child who weren't even your blood. That's not something a monster does. That's something a father does. I wasn't a father then. Yes, you were. You just didn't know it yet. Ivan's breathing slowed. His grip on Marcus's hand loosened completely. Tell your Destiny something for me, he whispered. Tell her that her $5 saved more than just her mother. It saved you. It saved me. And it saved every person her foundation is going to help. I'll tell her. Good. Ivan smiled one last time. Good. His eyes closed. His breathing steadied. Sleep, not death, but close enough to see the edge. Marcus stood and walked out of the apartment without looking back. He had a flight to catch, a family waiting for him, and a story to tell. 3 months later, Ivan Petrov died in his sleep. Marcus learned about it from Darnell, who heard from contacts in New York. There was no funeral, no memorial, no acknowledgement from the world that a man who had killed hundreds had spent his final months trying to make peace with his past. But Marcus acknowledged it. In his own way. He told Destiny the story, all of it. The night at the steel mill. Ivan's daughter. The choice that had saved their family. Destiny listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. So a man who did terrible things gave you a chance because I reminded him of his daughter, she finally said. Yes. And now his daughter's memory is going to help other kids through our foundation. That's the idea. Destiny nodded slowly. Dad, I want to name the first scholarship after her. Katya. I want people to know that something good came from something terrible. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I think Ivan would have liked that. It's not about what he would have liked. It's about what's right. Destiny looked at him with those wise, too-old eyes that hadn't changed since she was 7. You taught me that. Doing what's right, even when it's hard. Even when nobody's watching. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You're just slow. Despite everything, Marcus laughed. 20 years after a little girl paid $5 to save her mother. Destiny Williams Washington stood in front of the United States Congress. She was 27 now, a lawyer, an advocate, a force of nature that couldn't be ignored. She'd spent the last decade building the $5 Foundation into a national organization that had helped thousands of families escape domestic violence, human trafficking, and exploitation. And today, she was testifying in favor of a bill that would increase funding for victim services by 500%. Senators, representatives, thank you for having me here today, she began. I want to start by telling you a story. She pulled out the $5 bill, the same one. 20 years old now, worn soft as silk, but still intact. When I was 7 years old, my mother was kidnapped by human traffickers. They took her from our home while I hid in a closet too scared to move. The police said they'd look into it. Child Services said they'd file a report. Nobody actually helped. She held up the bill. So I took my lunch money, all $5 of it, and I found someone who would. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on her. That someone was my father, Marcus Washington. He's sitting in the gallery today. She pointed. 20 years ago, he was a different man. A dangerous man. But when a 7-year-old girl asked him to save her mother, he said yes. Not because it was profitable, not because it was easy, but because it was right. Marcus sat in the gallery, Tamara beside him. Both of them watching their daughter command the attention of the most powerful legislative body in the world. My father saved 12 women that night. 12 mothers, 12 daughters, 12 human beings who had been reduced to commodities by people who saw them as nothing more than profit margins. She paused, letting the weight settle. The men who took those women are gone now. But the system that enabled them is still here. The poverty that made those women vulnerable is still here. The indifference that allowed them to disappear is still here. Her voice rose. This bill won't fix everything. No bill can. But it's a start. It's funding for shelters, for counseling, for legal aid. It's training for police officers to recognize trafficking victims instead of treating them like criminals. It's resources for children, like I was, children who have nowhere to turn when the adults in their lives fail them. She held up the $5 bill one final time. This is what courage looks like. Not armies, not weapons, not power, just one small act of bravery that changes everything. She looked directly at the assembled legislators. I'm asking you to be brave today. I'm asking you to vote yes on this bill. I'm asking you to be the someone who helps when everyone else looks away. She stepped back from the microphone. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous ovation. Senators who had never agreed on anything were standing clapping, some of them wiping their eyes. The bill passed 3 weeks later, the largest increase in victim services funding in American history. That night, Destiny called her father. We did it, Dad. We actually did it. You did it, little one. I just watched. No. Her voice was firm. We did it. 20 years ago, you took a $5 contract from a scared kid. Everything since then, everything I've accomplished at all comes from that moment. From you saying yes when everyone else said no. Marcus was quiet for a moment. He was 73 now, moving slower but still sharp, still present. Destiny, can I tell you something? Always. That night when you walked up to me with that $5 bill, I was lost. I didn't know it then, but I was. I had money, power, respect, but I was empty. Hollow. Just going through the motions of a life that had stopped meaning anything. He paused, remembering. Then you showed up. This tiny little girl with beads in her hair and holes in her shoes, holding out everything she owned and asking me to be a hero. And something inside me just woke up. Dad, you didn't just save your mother that night. You saved me. You gave me something to fight for, something to be. And I've spent the last 20 years trying to be worthy of the faith you had in me. Destiny was crying now. He could hear it in her breathing. Are you? She asked. Worthy, I mean. Marcus thought about all the years. The wedding, the graduations, the late-night homework sessions, and the early morning breakfasts. He thought about watching Destiny grow from a scared child into a woman who could move mountains with words alone. I don't know, he said honestly, but I'm still trying. Every day. That's all any of us can do. That's all I ever wanted, Dad. Someone who would try. Well, you got me. For whatever that's worth. It's worth everything. She laughed through her tears. Even if you're terrible at fractions. I taught you fractions. And I had to relearn them in 8th grade because you taught them wrong. Despite himself, Marcus laughed. Fair point. Dad, yeah. Thank you. For taking my $5. For keeping your promise. For becoming my father. She paused. For being exactly who I needed you to be. Thank you for asking, Marcus said. For being brave enough to ask. I love you, Dad. I love you too, little one, more than all the money in the world. He hung up and sat in the quiet of his living room. Tamara had gone to bed hours ago, but Marcus couldn't sleep. Not tonight. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. Old and worn but carefully preserved. It showed a 7-year-old girl with braids and beads standing on a Chicago sidewalk holding out a crumpled $5 bill. The photographer had been a security camera. Darnell had pulled the footage years ago and had this frame printed for Marcus's 60th birthday. Boss captured scene. The inscription read, "By a $5 contract." Marcus smiled at the image. 20 years ago, he had been the king of Chicago's South Side. He had commanded an empire of violence and fear. He had thought he knew what power meant. He was wrong. Power wasn't territory. It wasn't money. It wasn't the ability to make people fear you. Power was a little girl who refused to give up. It was a mother who survived the unsurvivable. It was a family built from the ashes of everything that had tried to destroy them. Power was love. Real, messy, complicated, unconditional love. Marcus Washington had learned that lesson 20 years ago on a cold Chicago night when a 7-year-old girl changed his life with $5 and 3 words, "Help my mama." He had. And in doing so, he had helped himself. That was the real miracle. That was the real legacy. Not the empire he'd built and walked away from. Not the money he'd made and given away. Not even the legislation his daughter had just passed. The legacy was simpler than that. Purer. It was a father who kept his promises. A mother who never stopped fighting. A daughter who turned her pain into purpose. It was a $5 bill that proved courage has no price tag. And it was the truth that Marcus Washington carried in his heart until the day he died peacefully at 91, surrounded by 3 generations of family who loved him. Sometimes the bravest person in the room is a 7-year-old girl with nothing but hope. And sometimes that's exactly what the world needs.